Hey friends, how is your week going? It's that weird week in between Christmas and New Year's, and I know that looks different for everyone. Some of you, this is high gear for you, and some of you, you got a little bit of downtime, a little time to reflect. I hope that you had a good Christmas. Hope that everyone is well and healthy in your world. So it's about time for New Year's, and I know this is the time when a lot of us start thinking about New Year's resolutions. And man, I've got so many times I've tried to make a resolution and it worked for a few weeks, but it's been hard for me to build sustainable habits that have been meaningful to me and have produced the results, the changes that I've wanted. I've been doing this podcast called Reading the Bible Responsibly for the past few months. Many of you are subscribing and listening to that. So I kind of wanted to merge two worlds of mine. One is the world of productivity and habit building that is important to me. Another is the world of Bible reading and habits of being formed by Scripture. I just wanted to pop on for a few minutes and tell you some things I'm learning about forming habits. And maybe this is useful to you. I always appreciate it when people give me book recommendations. Many of you post things to your feeds, and I may not tell you, but I do read a lot of what my friends find helpful. And so I wanted to give you some things I've found helpful. I'm just trying to learn a lot about being a better habit, not just a habit thinker, but a habit doer. I've got lots of great habits I'd love to think about, but many of them are not lasting. So anyway, I just wanted to share some resources with you. If you're watching live, you can certainly drop a comment in whatever platform you're watching. If you're on Facebook, watching on my profile or my page, leave me a comment. Happy to answer questions for a few minutes while I'm on. But let me share with you 5 resources that have been helpful to me as I'm trying harder to build habits that form me into the kind of person that I want to be. So here are 5 resources. The first one is a book called You Are Not Your Brain. It's by 2 doctors, Jeremy Schwartz and Rebecca Gladding. This is a lot about what's going on in your brain when you are performing bad habits or behaviors that you don't like. I don't think it's a super technical book, not a lot of neuroscience necessarily, but enough that was helpful to me. They talk a lot about kind of the cycle of negative thoughts we have, like I'm anxious, so I'm going to do this thing I shouldn't do to help me feel better about being anxious. But really what this book helped me understand is that bad habits are hardwired. The image they use is kind of like when you have tire tracks through dirt or through mud, and then the next set of tires just follows in that because the ruts are there and you sort of dip down in, and it's actually hard to come out of that rut. And so when we have built bridges between, maybe unhealthy thoughts and unhealthy behaviors, when we've done that for a long time, we've created wiring in our brain, so we just default to those unhealthy behaviors. And so we don't even think about it. It's just how our body goes into autopilot. So this book helped me realize that we've got to actually make new paths, and that's really hard. But I would recommend reading this book if you want to understand how to change your thinking about some of the habits that you have in order to form better habits. The second book that was helpful to me, and some of you have probably heard of this one, a pretty well-known book in the habit world by Charles Duhigg called The Power of Habit. A lot of people have read this and found it helpful. But Duhigg talks about the cycle of habits, and he helped me understand that the behavior is only part of a cycle. So this image here helps me understand what's going on with habits, that there's 3 parts. There's the cue, the response, and the reward. The cue is, kind of like the previous book mentioned, maybe a negative thought or a negative emotion that I'm having. And then the response is what I do, and then the reward is how I feel better after that response. And so you can see in that first graphic, the cue is, I'm feeling anxious or worried or tired. And so my response is, I'm going to medicate with, I think this looks like alcohol here. And then I will feel relieved. That's my reward. And Duhigg helped me understand that you can't change the cue, really. You're going to have these feelings, and you shouldn't change the reward. You're going to do whatever makes you feel better. A bad habit that doesn't give you the same sort of reward, a good habit that doesn't give you the same sort of reward as the bad habit did is destined to fail. So you have to find a routine that gives you the same good reward for the cue that you have. In other words, if you're anxiety always causes you to medicate unhealthfully, maybe with a drink or food, and that makes you feel better, you've got to find another habit that gives you that same reward. Now, it might not at first, but in this graphic at the bottom right, you can see that maybe a better routine would be talking to a friend. So I'm feeling anxious, I'm going to call this person, and this person is always helpful to me, and I will feel the same kind of calm after talking to this person as I do when I medicate unhealthfully. So I think you should read this book if you want some tips on replacing bad habits with good habits and understanding what a good habit that has some lasting power might be. The third resource, you've probably heard of this one if you read anything in the self-help or productivity world. This is Atomic Habits by James Clear. And you can see the subtitle there, or the text at the top of the book cover is Tiny Changes, Remarkable Results. So Clear helped me see that, listen, we can talk about lofty goals, but really what you got to do is work your system. And your system is going to keep producing the same results it's producing until you change the system, like the nuts and bolts, what's going on here. And so really this is some practical tips on, if we go to Duhigg's language, how do we replace the response? But really what Duhigg helped me see is that small, consistent changes add up. Small, consistent changes add up. So yes, I can talk about what kind of person do I want to be. And then I'm going to cast tiny votes every day or every week for that kind of person. So if I want to be a kind of person who's, rooted in Scripture, what kind of person would I be if I read Scripture faithfully for 15 minutes, 5 days a week? That seems reasonable, right? So, what am I going to do with small changes that can add up? Right? So I would suggest reading this book if you want inspiration and encouragement for adding small habits, right? If you want to change a habit, add a habit, and you need not just some theory, but just some encouragement that it actually makes a difference, you should read James Clear's Atomic Habits. The fourth resource is Michael Hyatt and Company's No Fail Habits. People that know me know that I'm a fan of Michael Hyatt's work and his company's work. I'm a user of their materials. I recently got certified in their full focus planner methodology because it's been helpful to me, and maybe it can be helpful to others to learn their whole system for not just goal achievement, but just getting some control over how you're spending your time in your life, and then using that to build yourself into the kind of person that you'd like to be. I've been using their materials for 3 or 4 years now, and they've been helpful to me. This book from Michael and his company is called No Fail Habits. And this book has reminded me that habits on their own are hard, but if you build your habits into rituals, like a larger set of behaviors that happen consistently, that will set you up for success. So if Clear's book says, hey, don't just work on goals, but work on your systems, then Hyatt's book really has helped me understand how to work on my system. You can see, I use a paper planner. Some people can't believe that because I love technology, but I use technology. I use digital calendar management and task management, but here's just a glimpse. Let's see if we can get the camera to focus in on that. There you go. This is just kind of some pages in their planner that have helped me, set goals. Is it an achievement goal, like I'm working toward some number at the end, or is it a habit goal, like I want to do this behavior consistently? And those are actually two separate things, and have helped me think about the habits and goals that I want to make. And their planner has just helped me put those in writing and achieve some things I've been trying to achieve, just the kind of person that I want to be. So if we talk about Scripture reading particularly, like for me, the way that I've been able to finally build this habit like I want to is to build it into a larger morning ritual. You have a morning ritual too. You might not know it, but you have behaviors that you do every morning. You get out of bed, maybe you take a shower, you eat, you get the coffee ready, whatever. You've got things in the morning. So I just kind of built this into what I was already doing. And I made it really easy. Like I always think about, how can I give a gift to tomorrow morning Josh? Because I don't trust tomorrow morning Josh. Tomorrow morning Josh is tired. Tomorrow morning Josh doesn't really want to do anything except veg and drink coffee. But the night before? What if I laid out the Bible or whatever devotional guide I'm using to the page I need to start on? What if I put everything on the table? What if I set the coffee maker to have coffee ready when I'm up, and I put the mug out, and this is just a way to automate some of this stuff. And Hyatt talks about that in his book. How do you automate your habits so that you don't have to think in the moment, oh man, do I want to do this? Okay, what do I have to do to get this done? For me, it's like I can wake up and sit down at the table and get it done. I was grateful several months ago to be on my friend Cale Courtwright's podcast called How to Christian, and he asked me a lot about this as I was still figuring it out. I'll drop a link to that in the comments and in the show notes when we're finished with this live broadcast. So if you want to listen to more of me trying to work this out, you're welcome to do that. So I would read this book if you want some super practical tips for how to build habits, how to put them into your routine, and set yourself up for success. Here's the final resource I would recommend to you, Justin Whitmel Earley's Habits of the Household. I really appreciated this author. He's written some earlier books on, I guess you would call them more personal habits, not only personal, but mainly geared toward yourself, maybe your spiritual community. But this is a dad in this book, really. That's his hat, writing about how he's tried to help his household form habits. So it's not all about like overtly super spiritual habits too. Like there's a chapter on screen time habits, which I know is really on the mind of a lot of parents, including myself. And so one way, I guess, that you can set yourself up for success in habits is to create family habits. So I'm not just doing this myself, we're doing this as a family. So what would screen time habits look like as a family? What would devotional habits look like as a family, right? Those sorts of things. So I would read this book if you have children and or you want help developing habits and routines to avoid unhealthy behavior. So in other words, I think Earley's book is like a really good set of guardrails. Like here are some things that a lot of people don't want to do. So what habits could I do instead of that? And man, I've really appreciated his book. I'm not even quite finished with it, but I'm really grateful for it, and I can see some uses for it for my church community and other parents who are kind of in the same boat that I am. That's helpful to me because I think a lot about not just what kind of person I want to be, but what kind of children I want my kids to grow up to be. So that's helpful to me as you think about forming family habits. I'm recording this video and gonna pull the audio from it and put it in an upcoming episode of my podcast, Reading the Bible Responsibly. I know many of you are subscribed to that, but if you're not, I'll drop a link down below. I'm just going to do an episode on habits, and I'm going to add some more specifically on building the habit of scripture reading. I'm going to talk about some resources for that, but I do have a blog post from a year ago that I wrote on 8 devotional guides for a great new year, and I'll drop that in the comments if you want to read some recommendations I have for reading plans or other devotional guides. Like if you're thinking about building a habit of quiet time or devotional reading or scripture reading, that sort of thing, I'm on this journey with you and have tried many things that haven't worked, and I'm just now getting around to some things that have. And so if those are helpful to you, then I'll be grateful. So thanks for those of you who are watching live, and for those of you who are watching this later. I hope this is helpful to you. Let me know if you've got questions. If you have other resources that have been helpful to you, I want to know that too. But for now, again, hope you've had a Merry Christmas, and I hope that you have a great New Year.